Good afternoon, everyone. Today is February 24th. I bet everybody already knew that. I have to actually look at the paper because days go by so quickly. We are the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee's Health and Human Services Subcommittee. We have one budget before us this afternoon. We are going to hear the budget of the DHS Family Investment Administration. We're going to start with analyst Tanya Zimmerman. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The fiscal 2023 allowance for the Family Investment Administration decreases by $2.2 billion, or 47.4%. This is primarily in the Assistance Payments Program. If you exclude that, the budget would increase by $7.1 million, or 2.6%. Moving ahead to some of the discussion of the performance, in the 2021 Joint Chairman's Report, committee narrative requested the department submit data on application processing times. The concern was that with the restart of recertifications that there might be an impact on the application processing times, or interest in monitoring that. The recertifications did not actually begin until January 2022, so applications remain relatively low during this period. The general processing standard is within 30 days, although for some SNAP applications, the processing standard is 7 days. So as you can see in Exhibit 1 here, the average days to process applications for SNAP, TCA, and TDAP remained below the 30-day limit, with SNAP being the lowest because of that lower processing time for some applications. However, that doesn't tell kind of the entire story. So what this chart does in Exhibit 2 is provide information on the percent of the applications that are processed within 30 days. While TCA and TDAP have similar levels of the average days to process, as you can see in this exhibit, the TDAP has a lower share processed within 30 days, generally ranging between 65 and 67%, while TCA's is over 75%. In addition, 25% of TDAP applications are processed in 46 days or longer, while TCA has no more than 15%. And this longer processing time is related to additional requirements related to medical certification that kind of extend the time period for TDAP applications. Moving ahead here, so one thing to note is that the work requirements for TCA recipients has generally been suspended or modified since the beginning of the pandemic. There was an initial period of suspension entirely that lasted from March to September 2020, and then they altered that so that most cases were considered in good cause designation. They were suspended again kind of in the fall up until January 2022 as they transitioned to a new IT system. And there was also a change in the sanction process as a result of legislation from 2020 that changed the sanctions from closures to reductions in benefits, and also made some other changes in the process. As would be expected as a result of both the pandemic and the modifications to the work requirements, the number of job placements for TCA case recipients has fallen dramatically over the last 2 years. That would be expected to increase with the beginning of the enforcement again. What is also of note is the job retention rate, which is the blue line here in Exhibit 4. That had generally been upwards of 77 to 79% since fiscal 2012. It fell to 69% in federal fiscal 2020 due to the impacts of the pandemic. This was the lowest job retention rate dating back to fiscal 1998. So it was quite unusual. We would expect to see that to rebound as the economy improves. And also the department is offering or planning to use the TANF Pandemic Emergency Assistance Funds, a portion of those for job retention bonuses at 4 and 6 months. The able-bodied adults without dependents have work requirements to continue to receive benefits beyond a certain period of time for SNAP. Those work requirements have been waived throughout the pandemic and will continue to be waived through at least June of 2022. As you can see, as a result, the number of participants in the SNAP employment and training programs has dramatically decreased over this time period. Exhibit 6 provides information on some of the outcomes related to the SNAP employment and training program. So it provides information on the number of individuals in unsubsidized employment in the second quarter after completion of one of these programs, as well as the median quarterly earnings in that second quarter after completion. What you would want to note here is that in federal fiscal 2020, the number of individuals in unsubsidized employment in the second quarter after completion actually increased compared to 2019, before falling in federal fiscal 2021 with the lower number of participants. And the median quarterly earnings remained relatively stable between federal fiscal 2019 and 2020, before again falling in federal fiscal 2021 with the impacts of the pandemic. There are a total of 6 proposed deficiency appropriations that affect the Family Investment Administration. They total $2.94 billion. The vast majority of that, $2.9 billion, is related to the SNAP program due to higher caseloads and benefit levels that were anticipated for fiscal 2022. The emergency allotments have continued and still continue, which was not anticipated at this point last year. And the pandemic emergency benefits that are provided to school children and childcare. There's an additional proposed deficiency appropriation of $1.7 million, primarily in general funds, to support an early phase-in of a TDAP benefit increase. Under Chapter 408 of 2018, the TDAP benefit was expected to increase over a period of years to 100% of the maximum allotment for TCA for a one-person household. The deficiency appropriation has that happening as of January, and that continues into fiscal 2023. The remainder of the deficiency appropriations relate to the federal stimulus funds, which are shown here in Exhibit 7. The information on this exhibit is not only related to proposed deficiency appropriation, some of it you have seen in prior years, and that we've discussed in the overview. So I won't go over all of them. I just will highlight a few of the kind of newer items. So on the kind of fourth line, kind of the last that's on that screen there, there is $17.8 million through a proposed deficiency from the TANF Pandemic Emergency Assistance Fund. That is going to be used to kind of phase down the additional $100 benefit per month per recipient benefit that TCA recipients have received throughout calendar 2021. DLS anticipates that will use about $14.5 million of that, and then the remaining would be used for those job retention bonuses that I mentioned a moment ago. The second line on the screen now, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, this provides food commodities that are then distributed through food banks and food pantries. They received funding through a variety of the stimulus packages related to that, and there's a deficiency appropriation of just under $1 million for the fiscal 2022 portion. And the last item relates to a 3-year SNAP administrative grant that was available through the American Rescue Plan Act, and I will discuss the uses of that funding in a little bit later. The total fiscal 23 allowance of family investment totals $2.46 billion. However, 89% of that is related to the various public benefits programs. So what I'm showing here in Exhibit 9 is the spending of the $279 million that's kind of not for those public benefits. 55% of that spending is related to personnel, primarily for caseworkers. $37 million is related to various employment and training programs for both TCA recipients as well as SNAP recipients, and among other programs. Exhibit 10 provides additional information on the changes in the fiscal 2023 allowance. I'm going to start here with the showing the changes, discussing the changes kind of here in the assistance payments section. And the first of those is related to an expansion of the Summer SNAP for Children program. So this program began as a result of legislation enacted several years ago. And the mandate for that program was $200,000. And they've used that funding in fiscal 2021 and 2022 to provide the state match for local matches for jurisdictions that have chosen to apply to participate. In fiscal 2022, 6 jurisdictions participated in that program. The benefits provided per child are $100 through that program. So at the $200,000, a limited number of children can be served. So this additional state funding, which would be then matched by jurisdictions that choose to participate and apply to participate, would provide additional, the ability to have additional children participate. So this funds a total of $5 million for the state program, state share, which would support 50,000 children, and then some additional children would be supported through the local match. We've asked the department to comment on whether this increase is expected to allow more jurisdictions to participate or increase participation in the 6 jurisdictions that received funding in fiscal 2022. The second item on that page is the annualization of the increase in the benefit increase for the TDAP, and that's about $4.8 million. The last line on this page is the supplemental SNAP for seniors program. That increases by $2 million to enhance the state-funded benefit to $20. Under current law, the maximum benefit would be $10. So this provides additional funding to ensure that households would receive no fewer than $40 when combined with the federal SNAP benefit. This program has been effectively suspended since the start of the pandemic because of the emergency allotments, which allow households to receive the maximum benefit for their family size. So nobody has received less than $30 under current law or under $40 with this enhancement. And so as long as the emergency allotments continue, which are being approved on a month-to-month basis at this point, nobody is being served through this program. So it's highly uncertain the number of households that will receive this additional benefit when the program resumes. There's a decrease of $17.7 million or $17.6 million in the TCA program due to anticipated caseload decline, which I'll discuss more in a moment. The 2 largest decreases in the budget, and really the driver of the budget change, are related to the PEBT program, which is not expected to continue into fiscal to 2023. It's only available under the federal authorization through the National Public Health Emergency in the summer that follows that, and with that currently being expected to end in April, the program wouldn't be available next year. In the decrease, the largest decrease is $1.3 billion in SNAP, and that just aligns the funding with the fiscal 2021 actual expenditures. Again, with the emergency allotments continuing, it's really uncertain what the level of spending will be and how long those will continue. But when those emergency allotments end, the benefits will decrease to align with what people would qualify based on their income. And the caseload is expected to decrease as recertifications begin and the economy continues to recover. So it's likely that the fiscal 2023 allowance includes more appropriation than is necessary, but they would just cancel those funds at the end of the year. So if you move ahead to Exhibit 12, Exhibit 12. This shows changes in TDAP recipients. When we presented this analysis last year, the number of TDAP recipients had fallen dramatically to kind of historically low levels. There were some difficulties during a temporary kind of end to the recertification extensions and providing documentation related to kind of medical certification and other verifications that had resulted in a substantial decrease. In February 2021, the department indicated that they were planning to re-enroll some TDAP recipients that had had difficulty during the recertifications and verification. And also, Chapter 39, the Relief Act of 2021, required the re-enrollment of most TDAP recipients that had lost benefits, except for related to SSI applications, and prohibited case closures through the remainder of fiscal 2021. So you can see that after that occurred, the number of TDAP recipients returned to just near the pre-pandemic levels, and it has generally continued that way through November 2021. There was a decrease in recipients in December 2021. That is related to some unintentional case closures, and the department has reopened those cases. That was supposed to be concluded by February 18th. As you can see, the budget provides effectively the same funding for effectively the same number of TDAP recipients in fiscal 2023 as it did in 2022. The average benefits increase, this is really just a timing issue because it's the full year of the higher benefit levels. DLS believes this is a reasonable estimate of the cost of the program in that year. Exhibit 14 provides information on the TCA recipients. The number of TCA recipients was generally stable from May to September 2021 before beginning to increase in October and November. We would note that a number of the pandemic unemployment insurance programs ended in September 2021, and some other stimulus-related benefits have also ended, and so additional households may have been seeking assistance, as well as the unemployment insurance counts as income towards TCA. They again also had the decrease in recipients in December, which are also being re-enrolled. The budget anticipates a decrease of about 12.5% in the number of TCA recipients. DLS forecasts a similar decrease in recipients as the recertifications begin and the economy continues to recover. Both DLS and the budget assume that average benefits kind of remain at a similar level as they would in fiscal 2022. And I'll discuss the reason for that in a moment. So with the lower caseload and consistent benefit levels, the budget overall decreases. There are some risks with the recent increases in the number of recipients and uncertainty about the average payments, but overall DLS finds it to be a kind of a reasonable cost estimate. The TCA Cliff Initiative provides an additional benefit for 3 months after a household would have had their TCA case closed due to income being too high or employment. And from the beginning of the program through May 2021, there were just under an average of 1,900 recipients of this a month, with some variations around the beginning of the pandemic. However, since June 2021, the number of recipients has dramatically increased. It's unclear why this is happening because the number of case closures have been very low. So under the stated eligibility criteria, it's not clear what's driving that increase. And it's resulted in spending year to date significantly exceeding the appropriation. And so we've asked the department to comment on why they continue to be, why they appear to be serving more people than would be eligible under the stated criteria. And we've also recommended adopting committee narrative, requesting a report on the causes of the increase and a copy of an evaluation that the department indicated that they were working on. This chart presents the personnel data. There are 15.5 positions abolished. The main takeaway from this chart is the high vacancy rate, and we have some additional information about that in the analysis. You heard about this in the recently in the DHS administration and analysis, so I will not go over that again. However, I would note that they have funding in fiscal 2022 and 2023, $10 million in each year from that SNAP administrative grant that I mentioned previously to use for contractual staff to assist in case processing and management of SNAP as the redetermination process begins again. And we've asked the department to comment on their efforts to hire the contractual staff given their high vacancy rates, and if the contractual staff will have a pathway to regular position employment in the Family Investment Administration. The first issue relates to the SNAP benefit levels. As you can see in this exhibit, since the end of the Great Recession, the benefit levels for SNAP have remained relatively the same. In fact, they were slightly lower than they were following an increase in the benefits due to the ARA from the Great Recession and federal fiscal 2020. In federal fiscal 2021, there was a benefit increase for SNAP of about 5%, which is higher than historically has occurred in recent years. And then the Consolidated Appropriations Act from December 2020 provided for a temporary increase in benefits from January to June, which was later extended to September, of about 15% in the maximum allotments. For federal fiscal 2022, USDA announced a benefit increase of approximately 23% in the maximum allotments. This followed a reevaluation of the Thrifty Food Plan upon which the benefits are based. This has impacts on the TCA and TDAP benefits. As you may recall, under state law, the TCA benefit plus the SNAP benefit are required to meet 61% of the Maryland minimum living level. Beginning in fiscal 2023, this is 61.25% of the Maryland minimum living level. This means that the TCA benefits are impacted by not only inflationary increases in the Maryland minimum living level, but decisions made by USDA about the SNAP benefit levels. When the calculation would otherwise result in TCA benefits decreasing, the department in practice has held the benefits at the same level rather than decreasing them. And that occurred for several years during the Great Recession, during the temporary increase in benefits, SNAP benefits during that period. And it also occurred last year as the SNAP benefits increased by 5%, but the inflationary adjustment on the Maryland minimum living level was minimal. With the benefit increase in SNAP, there is not expected to be a need to increase the TCA benefit levels until federal fiscal 2028, assuming kind of regular inflationary increases going forward. And this also then impacts the TDAP benefits who are, as I mentioned earlier, tied to the TCA maximum allotment. Under the chapter as it was enacted, they kind of would have continued to receive benefits, but because they're now at the 100% of the benefit level, they will not see an increase until TCA benefits increase. The next issue, relates to kind of verification and income being kind of drivers of the case closures. and application denials. So this was, again, from information that you requested the department provide in the 2021 Joint Chairman's Report. I'm going to just focus on the case closure information, however. So if you look at this exhibit here, you can see the number of case closures has remained relatively low since the October 2020, which is the data that is available for SNAP. The recertifications have been continued to be extended until this month, and so the number of closures remain relatively limited, with one exception. During most of this period, verification and kind of non-cooperation, kind of documentation issues were accounted for the largest share of case closures, about 30%, more than 30%, but that has fallen in recent months. Since that has fallen, kind of income being too high has accounted for the largest share of those case closures. I would draw your attention to May 2021, when there was a significant spike in the number of case closures. And this relates to a timing of a waiver approval. So under the waiver they were operating under for the recertification extension, a number of the recipients wouldn't have been eligible to continue to receive that extension, and a number of the cases closed due to failure to reapply. When they received the waiver to allow that to continue, those cases were reopened. But it does highlight the potential challenges as the department begins the recertification process going forward. A number of people may choose not to reapply because they believe they're no longer eligible as their income has risen. However, there could be concern that people who remain eligible who have not gone through this process in quite some time face challenges as they begin this. And so we've asked the department to comment on the educational efforts they undertook prior to beginning recertifications, and steps they're taking to limit case closures for those that remain eligible for benefits. A similar trend kind of happens for TCA cases, where the number of case closures remains low and actually continued to fall throughout the period. There are a little bit different reasons for the case closure, whereas income being too high is the predominant reason for case closures for TCA recipients, and verification being the second most common. For TDAP, there's a more varied cause because they have additional requirements related to medical certification and time limits that those varied reasons kind of change over the periods of the data. And that is in part due to the Relief Act, which limited the reasons for the cases being closed. In the period that Relief Act covered, March to June 2021, the case closures were generally fell under the prohibitions or the requirements of the Relief Act, so mostly related to SSI applications. The largest share is due to not totally disabled, and that primarily occurred in June 2021, and that was as they prepared for the end of the prohibition under the Relief Act, cases that had their medical certification had not been submitted or had expired, had their cases closed. From July to November, which is the most recent data available, they've generally continued to close cases in a limited way, and generally under the things that would have been allowed under the Relief Act. There was a high number of cases closed due to no eligible members, which has historically been associated with having received a final determination on the SSI applications, but the department indicates there were some data issues related to this, and those cases that were impacted were reopened. And finally, the DLS recommended actions. So the first is continuing to request information on the application processing times, denial rates, and the case closures. The second is related to the Summer SNAP for Children program that I mentioned earlier. The third recommended action relates to requesting spending related to the pandemic EBT program. And the final recommended action is related to the TCA Cliff Initiative discussion that we had earlier. There is an update, which I won't go over, but it provides information on the PEBT program as it operated last year and the status of the program currently. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the subcommittee members? Okay, I don't see any. Ms. Zimmerman, first let me thank you for your presentation. I do know that you walked us through the stimulus funds and the impact and the deficiencies and the fund swaps. And if there's an easy way to say it to me again so that I start to get my arms around it, if we can go to Exhibit 7, and then if I need a remedial course, we can go offline.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So this, I would note, one thing that this does not include is the impact of the SNAP emergency allotments, which are kind of a big support that the department has received, but it's not possible to identify that spending separately from other spending in the SNAP program, so it does not include that. So the PEBT program is the largest share of the stimulus-related spending. $1.2 billion is what's been in the budget for fiscal 2021 and 2022. Which would cover, the department anticipates any spending if the department's plan gets approved for this school year as well. And so that provides the benefits equivalent to what a child would have received if they were receiving a free school meal, but they could not because schools were closed or they were out of school due to the pandemic. So that accounts for the vast majority of that. The TCA fund swap with TANF was included as part of the supplemental budget number 5. So that was basically to allow the state fiscal recovery funds to replace TANF spending, which would allow those TANF dollars to be spent in a future year when general funds were not so available due to the increased caseload. And the plan at that time was $140 million, but $100 million of it was going to be in fiscal 2021 with $50 million of it in fiscal 2022. Guidance that came out after the budget was enacted meant that plan couldn't be completed in that way. So there is a proposed deficiency appropriation that takes the $50 million they couldn't spend last year of those state fiscal recovery funds and brings it into the budget this year. The next largest item was, again, using state fiscal recovery funds to continue an additional $100 per month per recipient benefit for TCA and TDAP for the first half of fiscal 2022, which was something that had already been occurring through the Relief Act and a previous governor's announcement for the first half of the calendar year. And those are the kind of major changes. The last item on that page is related to spending from the Relief Act to re-enroll TDAP recipients and provide them the $100 benefit.
Excellent, thank you. 3 more times and then I'll be really fluent with it. But thank you very much for taking the time to do that. Any other questions from the subcommittee? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Ms. Zimmerman. We will turn to the Honorable Secretary Padilla and her team to come forward and give the agency response. And good afternoon, Madam Secretary.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman Griffith and members of the committee for the opportunity to discuss the FY 2023 budget allowance for the HHS Family Investment Administration. I am joined today by my team, Ms. Sanika Brett, Deputy Secretary for Programs, Lashira Ayala, Executive Director for the Family Investment Administration, and Stafford Chipongo, Chief Financial Officer. Also available as necessary to answer any questions, Daniel Waite, Director, Human Resources Development and Training, and others as needed. I want to take time to thank Tanya Zimmerman for her always thorough and thoughtful analysis. The department greatly appreciates Tanya's continued involvement with the Family Investment Program. Even though her portfolio has increased, she's a pleasure to work with, and we appreciate your support, Tanya. I also want to thank the staff and local directors of our 24 local departments of social services for their dedication and hard work through the past year, and especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Without them, of course, there is no DHS. You have my written testimony, which I won't repeat here. Before I address the recommended actions and issues in the analysis, I would like to take a moment to highlight some of our activities and accomplishments for the committee. Maryland families continue to face significant challenges during the second year of the COVID-19 pandemic, and DHS has been there to help. Our mission has never been more important. The Family Investment Administration now manages over 770,000 cases across all family investment programs.
Madam Secretary, let me apologize and ask you to get closer to the microphone to make sure you're picked up for the streaming, the YouTube. Thanks.
Thank you. FI's safety net programs are serving 300,000 more individual recipients compared to pre-pandemic caseload levels. This represents a 35% increase in the number of cases served. During FY 2022, DHS continued to distribute SNAP emergency allotment benefits, resulting in over $1 billion in additional benefits provided to active SNAP recipients. The senior SNAP program would increase the minimum benefit from $30 to $40 starting July 1st, 2022. This supplement is funded entirely by general funds. The FY 2023 budget allowance for the summer SNAP program increases to $4.8 million, allowing the program to expand statewide. TDAP benefits have been increased and are now aligned to the equivalent of TCA benefits. Recipients saw monthly benefits increase from $243 to $256 on July 1st, 2021. Recipients received another increase to $328 on January 1st, 2022. The new eligibility and enrollment system, part of MD Think, completed its statewide deployment in November. 100% of Maryland's SNAP, cash, and not MAGI MA caseloads are now managed by an innovative, secure, cloud-based web service built from the ground to serve Marylanders. That concludes my opening remarks. Now, with your permission, I will move directly to the recommended actions and issues in the analysis. Thank you. The DLS analysis contains 4 recommended actions. The department concurs with the 4 recommendations. Turning to the 5 issues for discussion, in response to issue 1 regarding efforts to improve employment retention for participants in the SNAP Employment and Training Program, DHS has made and continued to make efforts to improving employment retention for participants in the SNAP ENT program. Currently, we educate new and existing SNAP customers on employment and training requirements and provide a comprehensive overview of the various training programs available to them. We screen each SNAP applicant using currently enhanced tool and promptly register them for work opportunities. In addition, when a customer starts a new program, there's another complete assessment of their abilities. The enhanced initial screening and program assessment helps in matching the customers in the most appropriate program, which enhances their chances of successful completion and employment. We also work with customers to arrange various supports, such as child care, transportation, and educational advancement opportunities offered by our third-party vendors. DHS continue to explore additional ways to employment, retention, and other outcomes for these programs. In response to issue 2, regarding how the increased funding for the summer SNAP program will be utilized, thanks to the increased funding, DHS looks forward to serving additional recipients. DHS is encouraging all jurisdictions statewide to apply for the summer SNAP program for FY 2023. As I previously noted, DHS concurs with the analyst's recommendation to adopt a committee narrative requesting information on the number of children served through this program. In response to issue 3, DHS concurs with the analyst's recommendation requesting a report on the causes of the increased recipients in the program and a copy of the evaluation. Customers are returning to work due to a more favorable job market compared to the peak of the pandemic. The department anticipates the caseloads will stabilize to pre-pandemic levels over time. In response to issue 4, regarding DHS efforts to add contractual staff and the potential of this contractual staff to transition to regular employment positions, DHS is aggressively recruiting to fill both contractual and regular positions for FIA. As of February 16, 2022, we have hired 88 new contractual staff. Of equal importance, of course, we have also hired staff for 54 regular positions. We expect this increased rate of hiring to continue as we move forward. Finally, interested and talented contractual employees do have a path of conversion to regular positions, absolutely. In response to issue 5, regarding the efforts DHS has made and continue to make to help customers with the recertification process and limit case closures for eligible customers due to the customer's failure to timely submit recertification applications and documents, DHS regularly educates customers about the program requirements as part of the initial application process. DHS sends our customers materials, including applications and notices, to advise them of the responsibility to respond to agency requests and correspondence, and particularly to recertification notices. We understand that as we transition out of the extraordinary measures taken in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, including suspension of the normal redetermination processes that we discussed, some clients may require additional support. In response, we have made additional efforts to alert customers of the change, such as sending emails to nearly 650,000 customers, notifying them that recertifications are resuming, leveraging our social media platforms, including Twitter and Facebook, to reach the target population, and sharing recertification policy changes with our local departments of social services staff, our statewide call center, and our SNAP outreach and SNAP ENT partners so they can share with our clients and the community. We also took an additional step of calling those customers with a February recertification due date to encourage them to submit their recertification paperwork. Looking forward, we're also looking to add auto dialing and texting technology as part of the outreach. Our Office of Constituent Services is also fully staff and trained to assist clients as needed. This concludes my testimony and response, and I will be happy to address any questions the committee may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee members? Okay, seeing none, most of the issues that I would have raised, we talked about during your previous visit. I do want to applaud you for this multifaceted outreach program that you just described. I was getting concerned when I thought about all of the delays that have happened with the Postal Service, and so hearing that you've taken to social media and emails and calls and things like that, sounds like you're taking a comprehensive approach to getting the word out. So I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate that. Any questions? Senator Young?
Don't have a question, but Food and Friends asked me if I would give a very sincere thanks to you for all the support and assistance you've given them.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Only other thing, you would think that I wasn't me if I didn't raise concerns about vacancies, and I was pleased to hear that your information about the pathway for contractual workers to become employees. We can talk a little bit more about that offline, because I'm not quite sure what that means exactly. So if somebody wants to give me a quick idea of how you would transition a contractual employee. I saw you've recruited 88 and 54 new hires.
Yes.
But you still have a pretty high vacancy percentage rate, so.
Absolutely, Senator. And as I stated, we are being very, very aggressive in our recruiting efforts. And when we have a contractual employee at any time, if they show any interest in transitioning to a permanent position, we take the necessary steps and always help them with that application process so they can then transition to a permanent. But given the steps that one needs to take to bring an employee to a permanent position, and the urgency and the work volume that we have talked here, we made a decision to expedite that process by bringing contractual employees and allowing them to start processing the work faster. If you would allow it, and if you need more information, I can have an offline conversation with you, or I can bring Mr. Dan Wade, who is in the room. That would be more than happy to expand on my response.
Sure, we can take just a minute for Mr. Waite if he's here and
Perfect.
available.
Absolutely.
And as he's coming, I just want to, and I think he and I had a conversation about employee morale and how important that is. When your employees are happy with their work, then it's easier to get other folks to want to work there. So, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chairman Griffith, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk to you a little bit more about what we're doing.
Can you turn the mic towards
yes,
you just to make
absolutely.
sure?
There we go. So again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what we're doing in the family investment arena to attract talent and to bring them on board. As we've talked about, we have brought in 88 contractual employees, and as part of that process of bringing them in, they come onto the same eligibility lists as state permanent positions or state merit positions. So when there is a vacancy available, we've brought them in sort of in an expedited process to get them in the contractual, but they're already eligible then to move into the interview process for the state regular positions. If they are with us for 6 months in the family investment positions, there is statutory language that allows for a direct conversion of that contractual person to a merit position, to a vacant merit position. So that process is something that we will absolutely be using as we identify talented folks in this contractual pool to bring them on to have longer careers with us.
Excellent, excellent. That sounds like a glide path. All right. Any other questions, Senator Eckert?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you all. And I apologize, I was out of the room testifying on a bill downstairs. And you may have already answered this question, but in the governor's budget, I think he's announced there's 10 million additional for food banks. Did you all cover or share with us how that will be distributed? Does that go to the local food banks or specific ones around the state?
Did you want to address that? I'm going to have my Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. Thank
Answer
you very
that
much,
question.
Madam Secretary.
I'm Stafford Kibungu, the Chief Financial Officer. The 10 million is for the Maryland Food Bank, and it doesn't go to the local departments.
So the whole 10 million goes to the Maryland Food Bank?
Yes.
Okay, and then they distribute it?
They don't distribute it to local departments. Once they obtain the money, they use it to make sure they are providing enough food provisions for the food kitchens and all their partners they work with.
The food banks are.
I guess I'm not clear on that.
So is it that the funding comes to the food banks and it's distributed through the pantries and the other
Yes,
locations in the
correct.
individual jurisdictions?
Yes.
And I thought some of them went to the capital area food bank too, but I might have been mistaken.
That was the one in the
In the era fund.
2021. There was a special language to that effect.
Yes.
So, I mean, we've got Food and Friends, you've got Movable Feast, you have the Maryland Food Bank, and then you have some other local pantries. I was just curious how that was determined and who determines who gets what.
Is that something, Ms. Zimmerman, you can help us
do we
look
know?
into? Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'm just interested in it. Thank you very much.
you,
We'll
Senator.
get to the bottom of it.
Other questions for this panel? Okay, colleagues, we do have some written testimony on our desk, and we have other witnesses who've signed up, so thank you, Madam Secretary,
more
to
than
you and your
welcome.
team. We are going to begin with Robin Elliott, and then I think I have a Lisa Klingenmeyer. You both can come up, and then we'll move to our next panel. Good afternoon. They're
Good
both-
afternoon. Would you like me to start?
That sounds fine. I thought you both were going to, you go, no, you go, no.
Oh, good afternoon, and it's great to be back in the subcommittee. Robin Elliott, I'm here today on behalf of Movable Feast. We primarily just want to say thank you to you all as well as the department. Movable Feast, like its partner, Food and Friends, supplies medically tailored nutrition to people with serious illness. And we did get some COVID relief funds through the department, and that was really helpful. And Senator Eckert, to your question, our understanding is some of the funding may be coming to organizations like Food and Friends and Movable Feast, and we've been working with the department to understand more of the details. So happy to continue to work with them and the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lisa Klingenmeyer. I'm here today representing Welfare Advocates, which is a coalition that advocates for a comprehensive safety net program, as well as policies and programs that advance families into economic stability. We're here today in strong support of the department and all of the programs that are a part of the Family Investment Administration. I do want to start off my remarks saying thank you both to the administration and to the General Assembly. There's been some really critical supports that have been put in place for low-income families, and we just want to say thank you for those, including moving TDAP up to the same amount as a TCA caseload of 1 early, the additional money for senior SNAP. These are all really important. At the same time, we know that low-income families are still struggling. For most of our caseloads, they're still up at rates that were higher than we were before the pandemic. We can see in numbers that families aren't able to find stable employment, aren't able to find jobs with wages and benefits that they need. And while these low-income families are struggling, some of these supports we've put in place are ending. The maximum allotment for SNAP is slated to end in the next couple of months. The TCA families who have been receiving that $100 extra a month, that's slowly being stepped down so that when we hit May, those families will all be back to what their TCA benefits were before the pandemic. But we know that those families are not in an economic stable situation yet. And so as we're starting to remove these supports, we have a real concern for what that's going to mean on the ground for these families who are not able to make ends meet. Especially as we're, in the face of a historic budget surplus, we would strongly hope that these are the types of conversations that are happening on how we might spend some of those dollars. If there are opportunities to help bolster our safety net programs, we would encourage and would be happy to be helpful in any conversations around those efforts. In particular, I wanted just to highlight, and I know DLS did a wonderful job of this in the analysis, because there was a federal increase to SNAP, which is greatly needed. It means that our temporary cash assistance and our temporary disability assistance programs do not have to be increased by this body until fiscal year 2028. So that means that a family of 3 who receives TCA will be getting $727, potentially for the next several years. No increase, no cost of living bump. We'll be living on $727. Someone on TDAP will be living on $328 a month. And as we look at historic inflation, as we look at all the costs that are rising, those families need extra support. So we would encourage any conversations that can happen around increasing those benefits, even though there's not a statutory obligation to. We know those families need more than $727, especially for the next several years. That's just, it's a small amount of money that I can't imagine living on, nor can I imagine living on that same dollar figure for the next several years out. So we thank, again, the General Assembly for all the work we do and that you all do. We know that a budget surplus creates harder questions sometimes because everybody wants a piece of that budget surplus, but we do really request that as you're looking at those numbers, the low-income families on our safety net programs are on part of that conversation. And thank you and the department for everything you've done.
Okay. Thank you both for your testimony. Are there any questions for this panel? We thank you very much for coming and sharing. We are going to move to our next witnesses. I have Pam Richardson, Monica Mayo, and Denise Gilmore, who I know I saw when I came in. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's actually just going to be me and Pam Richardson. Ms. Mayo had a family emergency and won't be able to join us. So, good afternoon, Senators. My name is Denise Gilmore, and I am a field director with AFSCME Council 3. We represent 30,000 state and higher education employees, including the dedicated employees who work for the Family Investment Administration. We are also very concerned about the high number of vacancies that are currently present in the department, coupled with issues that continue to persist with the rollout of the MD Think system, a software program that tends to crash a lot and has just made work for many of our members more time-consuming. Folks are feeling pretty overwhelmed right now with trying to get in the monthly redetermination goals that they have. So we do want to highlight that as a concern. I also want to just take a brief opportunity to respond to some of the things the administration just mentioned in terms of solutions that they're pursuing for dealing with the large number of vacancies The first being an attempt to lower the minimum qualifications for the position of family investment specialists. Family investment specialists, are the ones that are dealing directly with the public to process applications for benefits. We're very concerned that this is going to have a detrimental impact on customer service. They are removing the years of experience requirement and the educational requirements from this position in an attempt to try and bring in more workers. We're also concerned that they are using contractual hires to try and get, staffing addressed in FIA. Our FIA workers have to know an incredibly complex set of regulations and have to have very good interpersonal skills to do these positions. We don't think that bringing in contractuals, who, by the way, are getting paid, if we're speaking of morale issues, are getting paid at a higher rate than existing employees. We don't think that bringing in contractuals or lowering qualifications is going to have the intended benefit and is actually going to be quite detrimental. I also, in conclusion, just want to add that, to this day, the starting salary for a family investment specialist is $15 an hour. I think before we look at changing qualifications, the first place that we would certainly prefer to look is a salary review for those positions. It's long overdue. They're going to try competing with a $15 an hour salary is going to be difficult regardless of what the education requirements are for the position. So we do think that's overdue. But with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Pamela Richardson, who is a member of our AFSCME Local 112 board.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Denise.
Good
Great
afternoon.
day. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Senators. My name is, as she said, my name is Pamela Richardson, and I've been with DHS now for 9 years, and I'm also a member of AFSCME Local 112, and I'm a Family Investment Specialist too in Prince George's. We are reliable, persistent, and we have conformed to the fluid situations of this agency. But this administration, what they want to do is degree deflate, and that means that they want to bring in the necessary individuals to fill these positions that have been vacant for quite some time. These individuals can come from those best places of recruitment, like she said, Facebook, Instagram, but how are you preparing them for growth? How are you going to get them on the career ladder? Training is very imperative in our agency, but training has been very reduced, and training is our coworkers. We train each other. Those contractors that's coming in, we train them. How are those people, 16 to 20, will be able to deal with unpredictable customers that come in? We deal with a lot of customers on a regular basis that come in with probably mental issues, whatever's going on in their household, and they don't have their benefits, they get upset. And then when the system is slow and it's stalling, and then we can't process anything, that delays our time. And then when we trying to correct those errors from those individuals that are not qualified, it's not enough time in the day to do those in my current daily tasks every day. The system of MD Think, as I stated, we don't even have a manual. It does stall. It does, sometimes it don't work during the day. And we get those notifications from OTHS that says, okay, this system is, they use the word latency and stalling. Here's a thought. Have you thought about increasing the pay range for our classifications to address the retention so we can stay there? Have you thought about scaling the years back of vested years of, now it's 10 years? Pull it back to 5 years so that people can be able to stay there. Our staff want to be compensated for the knowledge, skills, and abilities because it can't be just other duties as assigned. Are you willing to propose new class titles that will reflect the new system updates and incorporate our current knowledge, skills, and abilities? This would definitely separate from the novice to the experts in our agencies. Thank you.
And thank you. Senator Roosevelt.
Thank you. I'm trying to follow this. You said that the contractuals are getting paid more
Yes,
than the regular employees.
yes.
But then you said well, first of all, and maybe this is for the agency, that surprises me. I mean, what's the context of that, and how much is the differential?
Well, it just was updated. It was just
So
recent.
the starting salary for a permanent family investment specialist that starts at $32,800 annually, or about $15 an hour.
Right.
What agencies, and, DHS isn't the only offender here, but what agencies often do is they'll bring in a contracted employee making a higher salary than what the minimum, hourly rate is for a permanent employee, claiming that, oh, well, we're not paying benefits, so we can pay them higher. But with all due respect, it's hard to pay your bills with health insurance.
No, I mean, I'm all for paying you guys more, but
Yeah.
but it's essentially they're putting the compensation in one package and not separating out benefits. I mean, can I ask the question of the department on this now or not, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm just trying to
you
understand the way it
can.
works.
Yes. I think the secretary and her team is still here. If you have somebody that can kind of help address this response.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely, Mr. Wade, still in the room.
Yes. Do you all want to make room at the table so we can get the response on the microphone? Okay.
Come on up here, Mr. Wade.
Yeah, so, thank you for giving us an opportunity to respond back to the witness testimony. The first thing I want to say is that the contractuals and the state merit staff are all on the same salary scale. The salary scale actually starts at $33,480 now. It's $16.10 an hour. We are not systematically paying the contractuals more. We often bring in state merit positions at higher than base, based on extraordinary qualifications or other factors. And we are bringing in the contractuals at step 4 in the salary scale. But that is not unusual in terms of our hires of state regular positions. So that.
Everybody doesn't come in at the bottom.
Excuse me?
Everybody does not come in at the bottom.
That's exactly true, sir.
Right.
If I can just quickly respond.
Okay,
just
let
because
let me
it's-
just say this right here. Senator Rosapep has the floor.
understand, I understand.
And what we won't be able to do is turn this into a debate between the department and the witnesses. What we will try to do is give Senator Rosapep an opportunity to get answers to his questions.
If I can just
Thank
do
you,
a-
Madam Chair. That really
Absolutely.
is what I'm trying, I'm just trying to understand how it works. I'm not, the way I'm understanding it is, some first-time employees come in at below the first step, and some contractuals come in at below the first step. And I would ask, the representative asked me, I mean,
Yeah.
do you disagree with that? Is your experience not consistent with that?
So it is certainly possible for the department to bring people in above base. There's no requirement for them to do that. So the extent to which they are bringing people in above base or not bringing in people above base, we certainly have no control over. I just want to, mark right now on the state jobs website, there, this position was posted on February 15th, 2022. The starting salary is listed as $32,820 for this position. I just,
That's a factual issue you guys can
I get it.
resolve offline. Well, let me ask you a general question, though, and I really would, Madam Chair, if I might ask it of any of the witnesses who want to respond. I'm trying to understand what you're talking about.
I'm trying to give you some leeway, Senator,
I know.
but
I'm
yes.
taking too much.
Yes, you're getting a little bit
Okay,
outside the
that's fine.
parameters of a budget hearing, but go ahead. We'll give you some room.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it.
Everybody's still smiling behind their masks,
I
so.
understand. I guess, when you were talking about the glide path, I mean, it seemed to me in the presentation from the department, and that's why I'd like AFSCME's response to this, that hiring people as contractors, and then recruiting them to become full state employees, and 6 months, I think, is the conversion date. That seemed like a good policy for everybody. What am I missing?
So I think part of the issue, and there are a few things, is when an employee starts as a contractual, they're not accumulating any state time, right? So, 6 months can turn into a year can turn into 2 years, right? They're not accumulating any of that state time, so they've essentially missed 6 months without getting health benefits,
take
without
your
getting
point.
their pension credits. We also just don't understand why you would need to bring people in as contractual. I mean, there's already a probationary period, right? So if, they want to discover if an employee is going to work out or not, they already have the means to do that through the probationary period. There really is no reason to go through this process of, certifying someone in as contractual first, having them make, potentially more hourly than the people that are then training them, who have been there for many years. It just, it's unnecessary.
Okay, thank you. I can pursue it offline, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and we certainly want to get your questions answered, but we don't, like I said, want to go down a rabbit hole. Okay, so are there any other questions from the members? And certainly to both the panels that have come before us, as we've said from the very first session, the very first budget briefing this session, the vacancies are something that are deeply important to this subcommittee and really the full Budget and Tax Committee. We've been raising it. We've heard the concerns, and ultimately, we understand that different positions come from different pots of money, and so we want to be just as careful as we can to make sure that we're being as fair and equitable to all of the people that do the important work for our state. For those of you that weren't here for the administration hearing, we did do a deep dive into the family investment positions and had a conversation about the salaries and the vacancies and the credentials required. So we're going to continue to have those conversations offline, and certainly encourage you all to be in touch with the members on either side with any information you would like us to have as we move through our budget deliberations. I see no further comments from the committee. So with that, let me thank you all for coming and sharing information with us this afternoon. And that will conclude the Health and Human Services Subcommittee meeting for today.